that everybody knew what to do together to support each other. And my watchword in those days was, it doesn't matter who suffers as long as it's not the business. Because with the business, you are fed, you are clothed, you are housed. Without the business, you are destitute. And I know that's a great extreme. You're not totally destitute, you're young and you've got your life ahead of you, but I think you understand that I operated on quite an extreme level. And funnily enough, I was reading last weekend or the weekend before's Financial Times, which I get the Saturday edition of every Monday in my letterbox from England. And in it, Arsene Wenger, the ex-manager of Arsenal, said that he was so devoted to that club, which he served for 22 years, that he wasn't quite normal. And I must be quite candid, Patrick, I wasn't quite normal. I was so devoted to the business that nothing came first, not even my marriage. My business came first. I got married earlier than I wanted to, not because there was a pregnancy, but another set of circumstances, moving from Joburg to Cape Town. And my girlfriend, who became my fiancée, was scared that we would lose each other. And that's a whole nother story. And it was also a crisis.
So I'm picking up that, you have to have a solid foundation, and you had one in your family,
yes.
The hard work, and the choice of leader and the choice of people you surrounded yourself with.
Yes.
So what do you say to a leader who's in charge of either their business or of a department of someone else's business, or an entire business? I mean, those are three different, but someone who's responsible for giving guidance and moving people in a certain direction.
Yes.
During times like these, where uncertainty reigns, morale can be a bit low, remote working could be happening, or in cases where businesses are not able to actually open up. What do you
sustain themselves?
Yeah, when they've lost clients, what have you gone through that is similar, maybe, and what did you do that may be useful for other leaders in this type of situation?
Well, firstly, Patrick, may I compliment you on the way you paraphrased what I said initially about the good foundation, because you've got a good way of summing up that establishes a foundation. So that's number one. Number two, I was a bit spoilt. I was spoilt in the sense that when I started growing my business, it happened like this. After about 2 years, an old school friend walked into Golden Spur on a Saturday night. I was running around like sorry to use the phrase, a blue-arsed fly, doing everything in business work more efficiently, and to a colleague who principally look after the business. And who's the business? It's the customer. So in walked Raymond and his friend, and he introduced me to Paul, and I said, "Hi, you down here for a holiday?" Because it was season time. He said, "No, not really. I'm coming to live here." I said, "Oh, that's fantastic. What are you going to do?" "Oh, I want to open a steakhouse." "Really?" I said, "Where?" He said, "In Bell." I said, "If I'm talking to the Old Mutual, they've approached me about some premises they're building and they have available for a steakhouse." He said, "Will you help me?" I said, "Sure. I'll franchise you." I stuck out my hand, he stuck out his hand, and the deal was done, with the exception of the fact that the lawyers at one stage or another got involved in the franchise agreement. And of course, there was a bit of toing and froing and humming and high, and eventually that business opened. And here again, I trained so well, I insisted on training people so well that they really knew what was happening when they opened. Plus, they pinched one of my junior managers, made him a junior partner. And I knew with Brian there with them that they'd be fine. They wouldn't have to have me dash there, which was one of the reasons I, instead of offering him more, keeping him, I thought, this is not bad. This will work. And it did. And later on, years later, when one of my more senior partners left, I brought Brian back and he ran my store whilst I grew the franchise. So The most important thing is training. The most important thing is assessing that people are willing to be trained and that they're capable of absorbing everything you want them to do, and that they do, even when you're not there, what you want them to do. Now, you may have seen an interview not so long ago in the media where a guy who one day we were just desperate for somebody to run Joburg because it was starting to grow. And it was far away from Cape Town, flying up and down, and you can't cut yourself in 5 pieces, even though I had a general manager well established and a couple of junior area managers. Joburg was a problem. So I had a friend in England, he put an ad in the paper, and I went over and I met 3 people there, 2 of whom were uniquely unsuited to the job they were applying for, and one of whom was suited. And that fella, Chris Dunn, was interviewed by somebody very recently, 3 months ago. And he said in that interview that I was the most difficult man he'd ever met in his life. And I gave that some thought. And he and I are still friends, Chris and I. We talk on the phone occasionally and we have a good vibe, not a bad vibe. Mm-hmm. And I thought about what Chris said and why was I the most difficult man that he'd ever met in his life? Because he actually wasn't humble enough to take instructions and act them out correctly. When he came here, I had to get on his back all the time, but you haven't done that correctly, and you should have done this first and that third, etc., etc., etc. So he found me difficult. But I was honestly and truly, after having evaluated, and I've had months to do so, it was him who was the difficult creature. I'm also difficult because I'm very demanding and pedantic. I want things done just so. So getting to the people who need assistance, who might be having difficulty, my approach is to go back to your roots. We at Spur didn't, until COVID, after 53 years almost, is today the 24th?
It's the 23rd.
So 24th, we are open 53 years tomorrow. And in all that time until COVID, even though we had problems, we never had disasters. Even when the turnover of the businesses were a bit flat, we never suffered to the extent that it sounded like we would be closing down branches even, because everybody was carefully located so that there was enough business. We didn't put 2 businesses close to each other so that we as a franchise company could earn more. Once again, it doesn't matter who suffers as long as it's not the business. So if I would have put one franchisee too close to another and cannibalized the market, the business would have suffered because both of them would have been in trouble. So everybody was given enough air to breathe, enough revenue to bring in. So when things got a bit slack in the marketplace and people weren't earning quite as much because the economy was down and there was a crash, and there have been a few crashes, some more serious than others, we still kept doing well because we gave good value for money, good food for good value. We never compromise on quality. We try not to let people give bad service, which is a very, very important aspect of our business. And it was only with COVID that the stuff hit the fan. And then, unfortunately, we had to close a lot of businesses. Well, I wasn't in the business anymore. I was out. I'm out about 18, 19 months now. So COVID, I didn't have to deal with, and I'm very relieved about that, because even without being in the business at all, not even having a share anymore, I got out near the top, and where I had a few shares left over, the minute I heard about COVID, I sold, because I knew it was going to impact the business. And I didn't have that stress. Other people had to deal with that stress, and some of them dealt with the stress. I happen to know this, which is why one of them, or 2 of them, not there anymore, but particularly the one, was that they did nothing. They were frozen with fear. They didn't have the strength, the gumption, the creativity, the intellect to do things. And I offered assistance, but was told politely that they would be fine, thank you very much. And they are now trading again and doing pretty well, I think. but not as well as they were. And in time, yes, as long as there isn't a real bad second wave, things should improve. So
you've mentioned that point there, really, that I'd like to go into,
yes,
Alan, around not giving into fear and tapping into your creativity.
yes.
What do you think helped you in moments of crisis in the past to not give in to that fear and to be able to tap into, as you said, the creativity and the intellect and just problem solving ability that you had?
Well, in my business, I was uniquely suited from the personality point of view. I got on very well with customers, always. I get on very well with people these days. I always did. But, when I'm walking around town and somebody says, Madala, because I've got quite long gray hair, as you can see, I'll say, Yebo, Gunjan, Molweni, and we go into a conversation in my very limited Xhosa. But I have a very good warm vibe for people who address me, and they appreciate my response. So I was always very good with people. So what would I do? There was only one thing that I felt I could do: work harder, give more. And I was the one until a year and a half ago who, with a marketing manager who I trained for 10 years, and later on he was dealing with a lot of it, but the creativity and the innovation came from me mainly and from our advertising agency, where I established a very good rapport with the people in the agency, because I could have been in the advertising industry, and I might be, because I've been approached by somebody who wants me to perhaps handle a small account for them, and we'll see, a friend of mine and I might do that. And that's to keep me occupied and interested and creative and active. But I just I was lucky enough to be able to work my way through it. So devote yourself to your business, go back into the shops, make sure your staff are more on the ball than they were yesterday, give excellent quality food, wonderful service, nice music, and above all, cleanliness.
Okay.
Just make a fabulous environment that people want to be in, because they have fun and joy, not just food, but fun, entertainment. Be a little bit zany without showing off.
And you just mentioned quite a few things around how you worked harder, tapped into your strengths.
Yes.
And you gave more. You actually contributed even more. I mean, when in moments of crisis, but particularly, and generally, since I would say that a lot of businesses and a lot of leaders are facing crisis through COVID. I think those are really great takeaways and
well, I hope so.
And tips that you can share from your experience. And how about managing yourself through this whole process, as being the center figure? What has helped you in the past manage very stressful moments of crisis? What have you used to keep yourself on an even keel?
It's a terrific question, Patrick, terrific question. I'll tell you what happened. This one partner who went to Belleville, and then I pinched back later, Brian, very competent man. People used to think we were brothers because we were built similarly, except I was in those days dark-haired and he blonde. But he was younger than me. He was a university student who left university and came and worked, loved the environment, and he mimicked me quite a lot. I was about 6, 7 years older, and he was 17 when he came into the business, and I was 28. So 9 years, 10, 11 years rather younger. So he modeled himself on me, and he was very good at what he did. He was terrific as well, very good at what he did. And one day he started fighting with me about something. I can't remember what, to be quite honest with you, but I was very upset because I felt he wasn't being fair and he wasn't playing the game. And I think he got a new girlfriend, and she was saying, I want to spend more time with you. And tell this guy, how dare he insist that these are the hours you work, because we were in the restaurant industry. And I got upset with him because I felt he was being disloyal, because for years he'd known what the deal was. Why try and change it now? And one day we got a little office in a bachelor flat next to the Seven Spur in Sea Point, where we used to sit in horseshoe booths, those half circular, well, a horseshoe shaped booth, and sit and plug our phones into the jacks that were screwed to the legs with the phone wires coming out. And we took a bachelor flat next door because we started to grow a little bit. There were more personnel and we needed a PA. And he'd upset me so much. It was about 8:45, and I'd started doing yoga through a friend of mine. And I thought to myself, and I'll not make the expletive I used at the time, I thought, the hell with it, I'm going to yoga. So I got up, left the office, and I went to yoga classes. And I started going, instead of in the evening, I went in the mornings. So I'd start every day doing 1.5 yoga hours, then go into the office, work till 7, 8, 9, whatever, or 6 or 4, or whatever needed. Next day, I'd be back at yoga. And that started easing the stress. I don't know if without yoga, if I'd still be alive, quite candidly, and I wouldn't be in such good shape. I've been doing yoga for about 45 years. I've been teaching for 20 years. I'm now teaching over Zoom in case anybody's interested, because it's the best thing for your health and for your body, to keep it strong and to keep it aligned and to keep it healthy. And yoga keeps teaching me. When I got onto Zoom 6 months ago with lockdown, my pupils said, Alan, teach us on Zoom. I said, what's Zoom? Learned what Zoom was, started teaching 3 mornings, then 2 nights, so 5 times a week. My yoga improved so much because I now no longer was with a teacher who was getting old and her people were getting old and I was getting old with them. I had to show my pupils, who were different to her pupils, my pupils, how to do things properly. So I worked harder and I strengthened myself and improved my yoga. And I've learned from first experience what poses fix what part of the body, which she never let us know, because I don't think she knew, because she had a much better balanced body than I did. So the imbalances proved to be a blessing, because once you learn to fix the imbalances, whether it's in a business, when you've got a problem in business and you fix it, it's a blessing. Same with your body. So yoga has kept me alive. It's kept me positive. It's kept me healthy. It's kept me happy. It's kept me younger than I would be. Listen to my energy. I can't believe it. I'm nearly 80 years old.
Wow. And congratulations on not only just taking it up, but building it and helping others with it as well, as a teacher, a yogi yourself, as an instructor. So that's
and I
amazing.
do it for nothing, because all the money they pay, which is a nominal amount, goes to Ladles of Love, the charity here in the Cape Flats that feeds
Fantastic.
people. I don't make a penny.
And tell me about that. You mentioned training, you mentioned your own efforts, you mentioned having an outlet. Those are the sort of 3 things I'm picking up as the key themes for leading through crisis, as your tips for leading through crisis. And now you're mentioning something that I want to ask you, how about generosity? How about when you feel put upon and under pressure? How does for instance, your generosity and charity and giving to Ladles of Love, how does that help you, or how does that help you in the past as a leader in moments of difficult moments? And how's that worked for you?
Well, just getting to Ladles of Love very quickly, or just before that, what I meant by working hard was also going back to grassroots. In other words, addressing jobs that I hadn't done for a while to make sure the standard of the workforce was where I wanted it to be. In other words, when I was building the business with a whole lot of other people, I wasn't going into stores except more as a customer, not as an operator. So when things got rough, I went back in as an operator for a short time, just to make sure that the the blueprint was being adhered to, and then moving on out again. Now, as far as, sorry, where were we just before I digressed?
No, really around how did charity and generosity,
okay, so
how did that factor in terms of those tough, tough
so
moments?
I'm living my life in lockdown, and my wife tells me, she's my partner, but she is my wife, that this guy has started Ladles of Love, and that all the women of the neighborhoods right throughout Cape Town go to Pick and Pay or Spar or Checkers and buy 10 loaves of sliced bread and buy big tins of Marmite, peanut butter, jam, and make sandwiches, put them back in the sleeves, the sliced bread, take them to a distribution point where they're picked up and given to the people in the Cape Flats. And I thought, that's fantastic. And then to give them credit, Pick and Pay got involved and started subsidizing the bread for the ladies to keep them at it, because they also were suffering. Their husbands might have lost jobs, etc., etc. And then my ex-dental hygienist phoned me, and she was third in line in Ladles of Love, which was started by a guy by the name of Danny De Liberto, who used to be a restaurateur. And this hygienist phoned me, Alan, I know you're retired, and I know you know all the people in business. Can you help Ladles of Love get stuff? And we can't pay for it because every penny we pay for takes food out of the mouths of hungry people. I said, with pleasure. So I started phoning around the contacts I knew, and I started off firstly getting crates to put bread in so that the sandwiches didn't get squashed to pieces in Pick and Pay packets. So they were packed nicely in secure crates. And I got a whole lot of those through ShopRite. Helped me. I was one who onto that one. They things up with. So
Alan?
vegetables in cardboard boxes.
Alan, can I just break you up there, because the line was breaking.
Yes, I got a warning here.
Mm-hmm. And I think you left off as you were describing your involvement in Ladles of Love. And
yes.
Is this something that's in terms of you know, when you were in moments of crisis in the past, you know, things were difficult in the business, is this another thing that you did as well during those days, or this more recent in terms of?
Sorry, you broke up.
Is this?
You broke up. Is this another thing?
Is this something that helped you cope with crisis back in the day? Volunteering?
No, not really. No, I mean, obviously it's good. You feel good when you're helping people, when you're working on their behalf. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Good. I say, obviously you feel good about yourself when you're doing stuff for other people, when you're helping them, not getting paid. You're doing it because you're able to do it, and it makes me feel I'm worthwhile as a human being. I'm not just taking, I'm giving. Of my time, of my energy, of my ability. So obviously that's very positive.
Sure. Okay.
And I also approached Addis for big bins that are food safe, that they started cooking stews and other transport stuff. And Addis also gave mops and brooms and buckets. And then another company that I tracked down various people through, a friend of mine in Joburg, Muzi Kuzwayo. Muzi was in the advertising industries. He was a director of my company, and I met him when I read his book, Marketing Through Blood and Dust, and I phoned him up and I asked him to have lunch with me one day when he was in Cape Town. We became friends, and he happened to know the guy who now owned Gundel Plastics. So we got a whole lot of plastic to put over shacks when the rains were coming down in the Cape, and then tarpaulins. So all of that stuff, through phoning and sourcing and asking for assistance, is something I help to alleviate other people's difficult times with.
And how important is that for a leader to do in these types of times?
I think it's important for every human being. You don't have to be a leader. You have to be a person who cares about others.
I think that's my definition of a leader. Alan. Someone who.
Well said, Patrick.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Yeah, you know, I'm Jewish, but to use the phrase, that's the Christian thing to do.
Nice. Alan, it's been a pleasure, an honor having you on here.
Well, the honor's all mine.
Where can people find you? And can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now?
Well, I'm teaching yoga.
Yes.
I'm hoping to start a small little mini advertising agency. I'm hoping to be asked by people to give lectures on my career in the past, advice for the future, as you've discussed, how to keep yourself healthy, which is a huge subject. It's not only doing the right exercise, but eating correctly and drinking correctly. And by the way, Sue, my partner, came up with bless you. My partner, came up with a cancer specialist who's meant to be the foremost cancer specialist in Zurich in Switzerland, who says that if you get pure draft beer without preservatives, it puts more into you than it takes out of you. And there's a very good draft beer in Hermanus that I tried the other day, and it really, I didn't feel a thing afterwards. I just felt
beer lovers everywhere are listening happily.
There's too much preservatives in beer. I can't drink it, normal beer out of a bottle.
Okay.
Anyway, that's another subject.
That's another.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm hoping to give lectures. I'm hoping people approach me if they're interested. I'd like to act. I've done a little bit of acting.
Oh,
and
okay. That's
recently
awesome.
I got called for a second interview or audition, but ended up not getting the part, although they offered me a very small part instead, which I declined because I feel it wouldn't do much for me.
Wow.
Spending a whole day to say 2 lines, and it just didn't work, that part. But the part I auditioned for did, and I'm sorry I never got it, but they got somebody better, and that's fair enough.
And how can we support you?
I'm open for anything, man. I'm writing a book at the moment with Gus Silber. He's doing most of the work. I'm doing quite a lot of the infilling and correcting factually and adding in paragraphs as my memory serves me, and old thoughts and ideas and memories come back. So I'm quite active, and I'm looking forward to becoming more active.
And it's amazing to hear just how active and energetic you are. It goes back to your point about staying healthy, about the power of yoga, but I think also the power of your youthfulness and your
positive thinking, yeah.
And positive thinking. And what is it? Joie de vivre that you have.
Joie de vivre is an important thing.
Yes, amazing. Alan,
thanks, Patrick.
It's been an honor. And I'll put some of the links to the sites you mentioned, Ladles of Love, for instance.
Yeah. And do you want my email address?
I'll put that in. I got that, and I'll put that in there as well.
And you can put my phone number as well if people want to call me.
Sure. Alan, it's been a great pleasure. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, and talk soon.
You too. And I look forward to you contacting me in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. Take care.
Keep well. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.